Did you know that building healthy soil is the key to successfully growing your own food? Check out my new free video series where you will learn everything you need to know about building thick, rich soil, including the 5 essential components that make it up, how to create your own lasagna garden and why you would want to, and as an added bonus, a video on creating an almost instant garden for under $100. Plus, you'll get a healthy dose of my goofiness. Go to healthysoilhacked.com now to sign up for your free video series. Your plants will thank you. Remember, that's healthysoilhacked.com.
You're listening to the Urban Farm Podcast, your partner in the grow your own food revolution. Whether you've just been introduced to urban farming or you're a lifelong advocate, we're sure you'll leave feeling more informed, equipped, and empowered to dig deeper into the soil of your local food economy. With you every step of the way, here's your host, Greg Peterson.
Today on the Urban Farm Podcast, we have Tyagaraja Welch of Sustainable Humane Earth, or SHE, to talk about his experience with permaculture activism. Tyaga is an Austin musician, permaculture designer, and yogi. With all of his intensive training, Tyaga and his partner, Gunjen Mittl, created a socially conscious local business called Sustainable Humane Earth, or SHE for short. SHE is true Mother Earth activism. Welcome to the show today, Tyaga.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So I shared a bit about you. Can you fill in the blanks for us and share more about the path you took to get where you're at now?
I knew I wanted to do something with sort of raising awareness and consciousness around the way we live our lives. And it originally started as a festival that kind of spoke to all these like-minded ideals. Mm-hmm. It was called Art, Music, Life. And because I am a musician, that's where, my original inspiration for conscious ideas began. Mm-hmm. And we did a small version of it in Houston. And then my life partner and I basically went on this epic journey going all over the place and lived in India and traveled quite a bit and came to permaculture. So mixed with our spiritual pilgrimages and the mind-opening adventure we had with Max Myers and several other amazing permaculture teachers, the business quickly transformed because we realized we could create so much action with ourselves within our own space and let the action that we do in our own space speak in volumes, speak for itself, and have others join up with us, in this in the movement.
Cool. So you mentioned permaculture, and I can't ever pass that up. I've been studying permaculture myself for over 25 years.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And so you went and did a permaculture design course?
Yes. We did a permaculture design course in Eugene, Oregon.
Nice.
It's a great place to take a course. I'm sure if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So a lovely community of different teachers and people that we learn from that are actually living it and doing it. It was a real hands-on course. Mm-hmm. Learned a lot and mainly connected with Max Myers, who's now a colleague of mine.
And he was a permaculture design teacher?
Yeah, he gave I would say the best, most juiciest part of the course. And
nice.
The strategies that I learned there we still use today. And I'm sure some of your followers and listeners are familiar with it, but being able to use a holistic approach is something that we were already familiar with in the whole spiritual world. And being an artist, it just makes permaculture even that much more of like a dream world coming true, because you can put your artistic mind to your designs and know that it goes much further than food. And I think the stacking function portion of the permaculture principles is what we really specialize in.
Great. So I need you to tell everybody what stacking functions mean, because in my opinion, that is one of the coolest things in permaculture, called stacking functions. Tell us about that.
Right. And I think that's what Max is really good at too. And it's basically looking at any situation. It doesn't have to be the garden. Literally any situation, and seeing how many functions you can get out of that one situation. So even if it's how you get to work or the interactions that you have with people, seeing how many functions there are, and it basically comes down to resource sharing, which is kind of like its own separate permaculture principle. Because once you can stack functions, you can share resources within your own place, because you realize that all these things are actually connected and they're available to you. You know,
right?
So stacking functions could be how you use your small space in order to maximize your potential of your yield and your fruits and vegetables, like using a vertical growing space and then having cover crops underneath.
Right.
And you can apply that to your business structure, which is what we've done, I would say, to the max, is what She is all about. I mean, basically, it's everything that we do in our lives compiled into one conscious business. So it's the definition of stacking functions.
Yeah. Do you have a specific example of stacking functions that you can say it looks like this?
Yeah, sure. Best one is I just got to keep giving credit to Max. It's so genius. We have in our aquaponics system, we wanted to figure out how to feed the fish without GMO fish feed, which is what a great majority of the fish are fed, right?
Yep, exactly.
So Max put our black fly larvae worm composting bin right next to our fish tank. And then we just simply put a little hose in there because eventually the black fly larvae want to become flies.
Yep.
And then we put that hose into a pipe that literally drops right over the fish tank. So all day long, our fish are getting big, juicy black fly larvae worms. And at the same time, we are composting our waste, our kitchen scraps, and the leftover, scraps from the farm go into the worm composting bin. Yeah. That particular worm composts faster than, a great deal of other worms. So many functions are happening within just one little system.
Fantastic. I understand this one. I love my soldier fly bins, but I'm going to kind of add some clarity to the process. Sure. So you have food waste, and the food waste goes into the soldier fly bin, right?
Yes.
And then the soldier flies, they're so incredibly cool. When they're ready to go from larval stage 1 to larval stage 2, they want to climb up and out of the muck.
Yes.
Right? And so then they're climbing up and out of the muck, and they drop into the fish pond where the fish eat them, right?
Right.
Fantastic. So, and they're like, 50% protein.
Yeah.
So then you have go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, beautiful way of explaining it. This is the difference when you've been doing it for 25 years.
No, that's okay. Absolutely. I just want to add clarity here. Well, but then let's take that further, because you're getting fish and other things from the fish, right?
Right. So, aquaponics itself, I suppose, is the definition of stacking functions, right?
Absolutely is.
Yeah, because you have the fish that are there happily swimming and happily pooping. The fish poop is pumped out into a media that's either filtered or digest the fish waste with, you could use red wiggler worms or whatever. Yep. So the fish waste then becomes nutrient from the plants, and the plants give nutrients to our bodies and create so many other different things. Exactly. Because we take seeds off of our plants too. So then you can adding on. That's how you look at it as a designer. How many? Just you start listing them, and that's another principle, is observation. How many?
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. You got this permaculture stuff down, man.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks. We try hard to know what we're doing.
Yeah. So, Tyaga, I have to ask. Your name is Sanskrit. What does it mean?
My full name is Tyagaraja, and I just call myself Tyaga for short. Mm-hmm. I would say it's the more important part of meaning of the name. The word Tyaga means renunciation or sacrifice, or as I like to look at it, as more like a willingness to help others, and that's being the highest principle that you could live by. Because to say sacrifice makes some people scared, like, oh, you're just being completely subservient. But it's actually the clear definition is a willingness to serve others without needing to take something in return. So renunciation, sacrifice, and Raja means king, so the name together would mean king of that, of that quality. But the name actually is a common South Indian name, and there's a musical saint by the name of Tyagaraja, wrote 27,000 devotional songs. So
oh my gosh!
Long way to go. I have about 100. Right.
Congratulations on that.
Right. And so one of my teachers gave me that name, and I've given respect to it and honor to it and learned as much as I can about it ever since.
Fantastic. So let's jump over to SHE, or Sustainable Humane Earth. What is it? What are you doing?
We've gone through many incarnations of it. As I said, originally it was a festival, art, music, life, and then the permaculture training shifted that around 100%. Now, art, music, life is an event that Sustainable Humane Earth puts on.
Cool.
So the first incarnation of it is trying to be practical, because I, installed many urban farms in the Austin, Houston area. I would say we specialized in urban for a while. I worked and partnered with a commercial aquaponics farmer in West Austin, in Texas, and then we eventually bought our own property. So we pretty much figured out a solution that, with the permaculture principles, along with the aquaponics greenhouse within certain dimensions, without giving away everything, can produce us somewhat of a guaranteed income. Now, if you say the word guarantee to a farmer, they'll laugh at you. I know what it takes. Believe me, we've come very near to perfecting the system. So confident enough that we can build out in this way. So we're developing the new property with permaculture principles. And the first incarnation of it is just that. We have many, many stages and phases that we'll be moving into throughout the years.
Got it. So you're actually growing food, though, right?
Yeah, I currently grow food on all our urban farms now that are located in literally in just people's homesteads all over Austin.
Nice.
And I still partner with the aquaponics farm in Austin. We've tripled their production, and what I think she specializes in, because we do another permaculture technique of it's not a technique, you just talk to people, it's community building.
Oh yes.
So
that is a permaculture technique, by the way, building community.
Right, absolutely. One of the most important that we value so greatly. So I think one of our specialties is going out into the community, because farmers are so busy being farmers that they have a hard time being the liaison that gets their product to the marketplace. And we specialize in that. So we were able to solidify some contracts for this farmer and, help him sustain his living, Right. In doing that, we were confident enough we could up the ante and increase our production by that same amount.
Great. And I have an interesting question for you. What is your main crop?
People ask that at our courses quite a bit. I think they're just interested in what people grow. And I also get this from Max Myers, but our main crop is soil, because and especially as an aquaponics farmer, it's still important to cultivate the soil for a number of reasons. Talk about stacking functions, what's going on in the soil. There's too many functions, you can't even say it. But we know that desertification is a real problem. We know that the removal of the topsoil is a real problem. So in permaculture, you see the problem as a solution, and you try to find the way of growing it, or if something's in a resource is in great need, how do we cultivate that more and not even sustainable, right? Like we're in agreement. The word sustainable is overused. It has to be regenerative. We have to get it to a point where it actually sustains itself and is regenerative. Sustaining means, we're just carrying on a business as usual. We are way past that. So soil is very important. And so we I would say per pound, we grow more soil than anything
else. Fantastic. What is the philosophical approach to SHE's operations?
Well, this is something that is not so easy for everyone to understand, but I can put it into context as working for another farm before SHE was in full operation. So I worked with a farmer, and he could feel the energy that I would bring to the project, and afterward would tell other people that, wow, I really couldn't do this without the effort of Tyaga and what he's brought to the project. I say that not being bragging. I say that because what he's experiencing, although he doesn't know it, is a quality what's called seva, And that word is a Sanskrit word, which means something similar to my name, which is the willingness to do anything and everything to serve your community, your fellow people, the animals, the plants, without a want or a need for anything in return. And most of us, and I'm guilty of it also, I can't always live by these principles because society has developed in such a way that we've created this competitive attitude within each other, and we've created a separation. This is my fence, my yard, my American dream. You're not allowed in.
Right.
So that we are not familiar with acting with that kind of integrity in the heart. Right. So I would say that at the core, no matter what we're doing, whether we're putting on an event, whether we're sharing and teaching the things that we've learned that are earth and life healing strategies, or whether it's music or whatever it is, the intention and the feeling behind that is, from the root of it, seva. And that quality in the heart is the quality of not wanting anything in return from it. The joy is in the participation of carrying out the service.
Spell that for us, would you?
The spelling of the word seva is in English transliteration is S-E-V-A.
And it for me, I've always understood it to mean deep service.
Yes, yeah. And to have deep service, a lot of things in your own mind and heart have to be absolutely clear. So a lot of serving of others, and being physically in desperate situations and seeing that, like we have with our own two eyes, changes you in a way that you will never be able to go back. And you understand that actually life is not meant to enjoy. You do enjoy life through the process of it, but life is a duty. So our life is a duty to serve the greater good, because otherwise we would come out as perfect individuals not needing anything from anybody. The baby comes out and it's desperate for love and affection and food and shelter. So if we need those things and we're in great of number, that means that it's our duty to do that anyway.
And one can be of service and still be in joy.
Absolutely. The joy is in the participating of serving, period.
Yeah. So this next question, and this came from you, it's always a curious one for me because I have strong opinions about it. Do you think modern society is ready for sustainability? ?
Yeah. I mean, the way that the entire structure of not only the way we think, but the way we interact with the world and each other proves to you that as a global society, we're not ready for sustainability. So the reason why I wanted to do Sustainable Humane Earth and the actions that we do is to experiment with that, to literally say, okay, I'm in this modern society. Can I really, all these permaculture principles I've learned, can I really put them in action and prove that my own logic that says it's not ready is false? So that's our mission, to prove that it can work. And I think there are many things in place that are at the core of what makes us not understand it. And one of them, number one, is we've industrialized birth, the process of birth. So we don't understand that we are divine beings that need a certain interaction with the biorhythms of nature. And because we've lost our connection with the deep understanding of the biorhythm of nature, so many other things have become out of balance. Like hardly any animals that move in a migration anymore, even in the most, the most remote places, because of, fenced off property and our idea that we think we own this world. So the entitlement that's programmed within us from very early on is what removes us from being able to live and operate in this. We see that at this time, especially in politically charged times. We know what it is. It's to create separatism. So it's an experiment.
We're definitely seeing that in our political process this year. It's very separatist. Very clear.
And that's why I think the more we participate in that, the more we continue to allow it to exist. So I have many, many friends that are on the other side of this activism work, and they go out into the streets and they create policies and they're doing the political work and all that. And I'm glad that they're there and we need them. I'm glad that they exist. But our action is a direct action. Our action goes straight to the soil.
Yeah.
Our action goes straight to people, hand in hand, heart to heart connection. And we're just literally getting on with it. And that's the experiment.
Nice. Nicely put. So with that, I'm going to shift on you and I'm going to ask you to share about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure and what you might have learned from it.
I mean, I would say we like to use positive thinking, so I rarely go into these kinds of ideas with the word failure because it's constantly a learning process and an opportunity for growth for us and all that. So I would say, by that language standards, I'm failing right now. I'm failing all the time.
Oh yeah.
But in a really simple way, before I got my permaculture training, I planted several fruit trees in one of our urban farms, and I didn't realize there wasn't very good drainage for the trees.
Yes. Right.
And this lesson took years to learn because the fruit trees they were bare root. The fruit trees had to develop, and then the fruit started forming, but then dropping, Again, year after year, we're not getting any fruit.
Right.
And I would go out there and hand pollinate and all this stuff, Then got the permaculture training and realized that I realized where I had planted them because I went back and observed again after the training and said, what is going on with this tree? So learned a big lesson. If you ever want to learn how to lift a 5-year-old fruit tree and try to get some sand or something underneath it, come see me. We tried. Well, it's still an experiment. I think I've ruined those trees by placing them in the wrong spot. So learned my lesson and started fresh with the next plot.
Fantastic. Well, that's really what there is for us to do, is to observe permaculture. The main permaculture principle is go out and observe, is to observe and take the lessons away from it.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you consider your biggest success?
Well, right now I just had my life partner and I had just had a baby, so I would consider that as the greatest wealth. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now she can take everything that we've accomplished in life and turn it up times 1,000 with all the great advances and access to knowledge and spiritual depth that she'll have, and just being able to be raised in an environment that we've cultivated. I just I dream about what she might be able to be, what she would accomplish in her life.
Yeah. Fantastic. What drives you?
Well, as a person that lives by the principle of seva, and if I'm just talking about it from a personal standpoint, you live every single moment, every single heartbeat by that. So the person that's living by that is not attached to anything else. So there's really nothing else that drives that person. So I would say it does take some form of devotional flavor in the heart in order to give service to the greater good, whether it be from whatever spiritual philosophy you come from. Some devotional flavor comes in the heart. So I would say it's seva and devotion, because to give service, you don't necessarily have to be devoted. You can just understand the human need and the need of the plants and the animals. But I would say ours is mixed with some level of devotion in other beings, divine beings, and devotion in the spiritual tenets that we've learned.
So you sound pretty peaceful to me.
I feel that way when I talk about those things. Yeah.
How did you come to that in your life?
It's a daily practice that lasts a lifetime. So I would say I'm coming to it every single time I breathe. And when we're talking about failures, I fail at it a lot as well. The second you move inside your ego and you're worried about what you want and you stop breathing deeply, you start getting trapped by all those emotions that constantly plague you, that throw you from the path. So it's a constant, war game in the heart.
Or what if it's a constant just paying attention?
Well, that's mindfulness. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's what we try to cultivate. And, the future projects of She will be more in depth like this. The food, what I've noticed is that the more than my music or more than spirituality, the food breaks every boundary and barrier because it's a common good that we can all understand.
Yeah.
Not everyone can understand my philosophy or my music, but they can understand when I put a picture of a watermelon vine that I grew in my front yard that yielded 10 watermelons off of one vine. People are interested in that. They want that. So with that interest, then they can come in and see why we're growing the food in the way that we're growing, without it being evangelical or religious in any way. They can just see just from us acting and living out the teachings and things that we've come to understand.
So what final piece of advice do you have for our listeners?
I would say cultivate a willingness to serve others, because without it, I honestly think any sort of in-depth training you get in, earth-saving strategies is not necessarily going to help any situation. So if there's a lot of selfishness and greed in the heart, and we said that society is not ready for sustainability, then I think the only way to create a sustainable society is that we have a lot of people that have healed their own hearts in such a way that they can go out and serve others.
Perfect. So thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing your experience with us today, Tyaga.
Yeah, this has been great, Greg. I really appreciate what you're doing. This is the definition of what we like to say is acting local and teaching globally.
Thank you. Yes, that's what calls to my heart.
Yes.
So how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Well, we're developing our website now, and it is up still. So you could go to shenourishes.com, and you could look up Sustainable Humane Earth online and find our many different resources.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on the Urban Farm Podcast.
Thanks so much. It's been lovely being with you. Peace.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen 3 days a week for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.
Did you know that building healthy soil is the key to successfully growing your own food? Check out my new free video series where you will learn everything you need to know about building thick, rich soil, including the 5 essential components that make it up, how to create your own lasagna garden and why you would want to, and as an added bonus, a video on creating an almost instant garden for under $100. Plus, you'll get a healthy dose of my goofiness. Go to healthysoilhacked.com now to sign up for your free video series. Your plants will thank you. Remember, that's healthysoilhacked.com.